Yes, I have a question regarding how the media has really changed in the past few decades. There was a time when things were simplistic, almost overly simplistic, to the point of black and white. We were omnibenevolent. We could firebomb Dresden, and there was nothing wrong with it. But these evil soldiers who were driven entirely by world domination could do no right. And the Japanese, we had some offensive terms for them. Is it possible that things could or have swung into the opposite direction too far, to the degree where the contrast is so reduced that it becomes difficult to tell which shade of gray is darker?
Well, I think if I guess your question correctly, I think what you may be asking me to comment on is, or enlarge on, is what I mentioned earlier about pseudo or bogus multiculturalism. In other words, you could get the impression from a number of commentators and from a sort of mentality that's becoming regnant in the mass media, that to be a Muslim is to be a member of an ethnic minority, shall we say. That your proclamations of jihad are something to do with a civil rights struggle for a neglected or despised group of people who have no alternative but to be what they are. If I've got you wrong on that, I apologize, but that's what I took from your question. I certainly think this has become an extraordinary problem. It's not true, by the way, just about Islamism either, that people are afraid of attacking any expression of faith because it's an attack on a community. And communities have to be respected, and communities mustn't have their feelings hurt. I had it when I published my book on Mother Teresa. Many people refused to have me on because it was an attack not on the papacy or on Catholic dogma or on her very extreme and fundamentalist interpretation of it. No, it was an attack on the Catholic community, much of it made up of poor and vulnerable people, and so on. I had many editors and chat show people explaining that's why they weren't going to allow me to come on the television about it. So, yes, all of this is I think going to have to be confronted by those of us who began by thinking that a multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-religious society was a good idea, and are now being put in the position where its values, so to speak, are being negated, mutated, and turned against us, so that all religions have to be treated with equal respect, not just with equal consideration, but they all deserve a kind of protection. The exact opposite of what's meant by a proper multicultural society, where everything can be discussed and anyone can take part in the conversation.
I actually am going to switch my question a bit because I liked his so much. And I think you skirted around the issue that he really wanted to address was, well, that we're educated, like with propaganda courses and that, about the history of how the enemy has always been demonized and that to rally the people. But now reporters seek out ways of humanizing the enemy, and have we gone too far? Now can we actually, are we too forgiving of our enemies? Are we taught that, well, I think that's the question. Like, are we now incapable of perceiving evil?
Yeah, good. I mean, all right, then I'll enlarge. Mosques are blown up every day now in Baghdad by Muslims. Something that not everyone was ready to see or to understand. Places of worship, in fact, are practically never in the innumerable civil wars and strifes that I've covered. I don't think I've ever seen a case where a place of worship has been attacked by a non-believer, by a humanist or a skeptic or an atheist. It's always places of worship are desecrated and blasphemed by other believers. I think the last time that wouldn't have been true would have been in the Spanish Civil War, when the anarchists in Catalonia did burn the Catholic churches down. I remember George Orwell saying it was a mistake that they didn't get rid of the Sagrada Familia Cathedral in Barcelona while they had the chance. Perhaps a slightly heartless observation. But now, if it's in Bosnia, if it's a synagogue or a mosque destroyed, it's by Christian, Catholic, or Orthodox fascists. If it's in Iraq, if it's a Shia mosque, it's been destroyed by the Al-Qaeda forces, and if it's a Sunni one, by the forces of the Mahdi army. But we don't call them the parties of God, we call them insurgents. We don't even call them terrorists.
The press is
So I think that is a huge capitulation. The fact is the parties of God have Iraq in their jaws and they're tearing the society to death, and they're desecrating religious monuments and places of worship and pilgrimages every day and killing children in religious schools. And we worry that a small paper in Denmark publishing a satire about the Prophet Muhammad might be offensive to Muslims. Aren't Muslims upset at the mass murder of worshippers in mosques? What kind of sense of proportion have we lost, quite aside from any sense of what's obscene, what's hateful, what's murderous, and what's truly offensive? Yes, 1,000 times yes, we have to say that.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.